Good evening, everyone.
Kavatav, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, at least I hear you.
Thank you, Kavatav.
Hello, Rabbi.
Good evening. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so we're going into an important halacha here. Uh, So the question is, how long does he have to do Birkat Hamazon after he eats the meal? So the answer is that it's the time that it takes to digest the food. And says about Yosef comes in the Mishnah. Where is this? Perek Elu Dvarim in Brachot Nun Aleph Amud Bet. V'kama shuro Amar Rabbi Yochanan kol zman shenu ra'av. So it says Rabbi Yochanan that this is all the while that he's not hungry, to eat again. So it says Bet Yosef Gam Zeh Sham. In other words, how do you know, if you digested your food or not? So the answer is that if you're hungry, that means you digested your food. That's what he's saying. Gam Zeh Sham, it's also there, it says, Katav Rabbeinu Yonah, משעה שיתחיל להיות רעב, אף על פי שלא ניתקל עדיין לגמרי. So it says from the time that he says from the time that he's hungry, even though it's not totally digested, the food, כי ניתקל לגמרי עדיין עלה. We consider it like it's already completely digested. And then we go to the next thing, which is וכן נמי לעניין אכילת פירות ושתיית יין. Same thing also applies to eating other foods as well. That you can do the after blessing only the amount of time that it takes to digest the food. After that, it's already too late. So regarding that, he says, "Ken katav rosh." That's what it says in the Rosh. Sham v'had kamar sheno ta'ev leotan perot ikal midak. And that what he said, right? That he's not hungry for those fruits anymore. There is to deduce here. Im itaklu kvar perot she'achal vehu ra'ev. That if the fruit is already digested and he's hungry now. Keno tav leotan perot my have. The fact that he's not, doesn't have desire for those fruits. So what does that really matter? Rambam Pek So it says regarding that which Rambam said in Pek Bet, if he remembered before he digested the food, which is in his stomach, he does come return and bless. Katwa goat says in Hagot there, says to me, same thing also applies to drinking wine. ואכילת פירות and also fruits, נוהג דין זה, same thing. ואפשר דלראש דמי כל ששעה כדי שיתקל בשיטה. So he says even according to Rosh, could be that if he waited the time that it takes to digest, it's obvious that אינו חוזר ומברך, he doesn't come back and bless again. אלא כשאינו יודע לשער ניתקלו כאמר. So that's talking about a case where he doesn't know how to measure that he digested the food or not. So that means that if he still wants those fruits, so that already shows that fruit was already digested fully. But he says there is a doubt whether we require that you should be hungry for those fruits or even for other fruits. So regarding that, he says there's a doubt. Interesting. Okay, so let's see Shulchan Aruch. This happens all the time, people they wait, a while, and then they're not sure, if they can still bless. Maybe they waited too long. So a person has to know how to gauge that. So says Shulchan Aruch here, how long does he have to bless? Until the food is digested in the stomach. So how long is that? All the while that he's not hungry for that food. So from the time that he starts to be hungry already, even though it's not totally digested, we judge it as if it was totally digested. Same thing also when it comes to fruits. Also for wine. If he doesn't have any desire for those fruits or for that wine, whatever it is, Shuro calls then he can still bless on that. If he doesn't know how to measure when they've digested, so this would be like the way to measure it. Okay, that's it. Shulchan Aruch. Does say also that usually the amount of time that it takes to digest, these foods is like 72 minutes. But here's the thing, right? If a person had a big meal, it takes more time, So we're talking about just like an average kind of a meal. But if it's more than, it's a big meal, like Shabbat meal, so there it's going to be more. He's eating like twice as much, so not the same thing. Okay. So that means that, for like a big meal, it could take several hours. So as long as you're not hungry yet, you can still bless, Birkat Hamazon, whatever it is. Or an after bracha, after blessing, same thing. Okay. So we'll go to the next one. It's Vav. So it says here, "V'shur achila lechol levarech alea birkat hamazon," said Rabbi Meir. So, yeah, this is in the tour. So now the next question is like this, right? How much does a person have to eat bread to say Birkat Hamazon? So the tour brings a machloket in the Talmud between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. And so one says it's a kabetza and one says it's kazait. Right? So which one do we paskin like? You guys know what the answer is? So
The kasai kabbalah
yes, kazait.
for
Yeah,
bread,
yeah, right. Yeah, it's for bread and
but
also
it
for other
depends.
foods as well. You know,
And
pretty much the same, right?
I think doesn't it Tosafot said a different opinion? The Rambam has one has one opinion and the other. It's not much of a difference, no, in this case.
Yeah, I think you're talking about something else there, but here, right, in this case, we're talking about Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says kabetza, Rabbi Yehuda says kazait. So there's a rule in the Talmud, which says when there's machloket, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Meir, who do we paskin like?
Rabbi Yehuda, no?
Right, Rabbi Yehuda. Where is this rule in Masechet Eruvin? So because of that, here also we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, and he's the one who says kazait. So let's see, right? The Bet Yosef here. He brings a Gemara. Perek Shlosha Shachru, right? Mem Hey, right? In Brachot, Mem Hey Amud Aleph, Tanan. It says the Mishnah there. Ad kama shem mezamenin ad kazait. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ad kabetza. Bechol poskim eskimu. Right. So here it's talking about mezamenin, right? On zimun. And bechol poskim sheskimu telacha Rabbi Meir. Right. So just the opposite, right? Here the surprise is right that the halacha is like Rabbi Meir. He's the one who says kazait. So usually we pass like Rabbi Yehuda, but here in this case we pass like Rabbi Meir. Just the opposite. So anyway, right? But the rule is we pass like it's kazait, right? That's the bottom line. Okay. Let me just make sure I got this right. Yeah, I think so. Let me see how the tour says it here. Let's see what the tour says. Right, so this is exactly what the tour says over here. Exactly what we just said, right? Which is that. because right, so it says B'shiur achila levarech alea birkat hamazon b'kazait. So the measure is kazait, Rabbi Meir, like Rabbi Meir. Afagav the Rabbi Yehuda paligale, and even the Rabbi Yehuda argues with him. V'amar kibbutz, he says kabetza. V'kaimelan bechol duchta halacha Rabbi Yehuda, right? So he says in every place we usually say halachas like Rabbi Yehuda. Can I get the Rabbi Meir and against Rabbi Meir? The halacha Rabbi Meir, but here we pass like Rabbi Meir, and he's the one who says kazait. Rabbi Yochanan ka'eh b'shitateh. So why is that? So he says because Rabbi Yochanan holds like him. Right? So also these poskim paskin like Rabbi Meir over here, and he's the one who says kazait. Okay, so we're done with this chapter in the Torah. Let's jump over to Bet Yosef. So says Bet Yosef here. Everybody says it's kazait. All the poskim. So even though this Mishnah was talking about zimun, but these poskim already said the who adin the Birkat Hamazon. Same thing also Birkat Hamazon. Below zimun, without zimun. So they wrote the reason why the Mishnah here talks about zimun, even though it also applies to Birkat Hamazon as well. Without zimun. Okay, so anyway, right. Bottom line is that if you had a kazait, you have to say Birkat Hamazon. But is that from the Torah or from the rabbis? We already said that yesterday, if you guys ladies remember. So from the Torah, you only have to say Birkat Hamazon if you are satiated, right? As it says in Pasuk, Ve'achalta ve'saba'ata u'berachta et Adonai Elohecha. But here, the we call it rabbinically though, they added more stringency to this. And they said, right, that even kazait. So if a person ate a kazait and he didn't get satiated, he has to say Birkat Hamazon rabbinically, not from the Torah. Okay, great. So let's see Shulchan Aruch, and we're done with this chapter. So it says like this, right? Shur achilav levarech aleh Birkat Hamazon b'kazait, as we said, right? It's kazait. And this also, right, has a practical application, for Shabbat. Why? Because if you guys heard my Divrei Torah tonight that I gave in the shul, I was telling them, what happens is like this, right? Especially in short days that we have in the winter. So Shabbat is short, it finishes early, and because of that, when you eat the third meal, so that's the sheet, you're not really hungry at all, right? You're still like full from the morning meal. But we eat it anyway because it's a mitzvah, So, but since you're already full, so what I told them is, all you need to do is eat a kazait. That's good enough. You already had a meal. That's it. So if you're really full, right, and you can't really eat much, just have a kazait. And then you did the seudah shlishit, right? You did the seudah. That's it. You're done. And that's it. That's right. You're done. You did the mitzvah. So how much is kazait, right? I think that's what you were talking about regarding the machloket tosfot and this and that, right? The machloket is regarding how much is a kazait. That's the machloket you were referring to. So there's a machloket, right? That Tosfot says kazait is half an egg, and Rambam says it's 1/3. So the truth is, that 1/3 is more the accurate one, but sometimes we're stringent like Tosfot, because doubts, doubtful blessing in vain, and things like this. So we sometimes we go like Tosfot. But anyway, that's that. So as we said, right, on Shabbat, if you're really full, just have a kazait, when you're done. So how much is that? Right, very small amount, half an egg, 3/3 of an egg. That's it. Just to be sure, have half an egg, because we don't want to make a blessing in vain. That's what I was talking about. But even half an egg, right, is very small because our eggs today are very small. So that's nothing. It's bird's food, birdie food, nothing. So that's the way you do it. So we'll go to the next chapter, which is Kuf Pei Hey. Let's see what we got there. Okay. So now we're getting into the laws of Birkat Hamazon. Right, we're done with the meal. Right, the meal is over, so it's time to bless. So it says over here in the Torah, כעשינו בסוטה, פרק אלו נאמרים בכל לשון. Right, מאנה בידיהו בברכת המזון, ובא בגמרא ברכת המזון, מניין דכתיב וברכת בכל לשון שאתה מברך, וברכת. Right, so anyway, it says over here in the Gemara there, Lamed Bet Amud Aleph in Sotah, that you can do Birkat Hamazon in any language. So if a person doesn't speak Hebrew, whatever, or doesn't read Hebrew, whatever it is, he can do Birkat Hamazon in English or whatever, any language that he knows. But the truth is, when it comes to prayers, it's always better to do in Hebrew. But if he doesn't know how to read Hebrew, what can you do, right? We do the best we can. So that's Aleph. Let's see Shulchan Aruch on that. So very short, right? Birkat Hamazon ne'emra b'chol lashon. Birkat Hamazon can be said in any language. So there you go, right? It's very simple. Okay, that's that. Then we'll go to Bet. So it says here in the Torah, "V'tzarich she'yashmiע le'oznav ma shemotzi b'sfatav." Another thing we say is that when you say Birkat Hamazon, you have to hear what you're saying, in your ear. So in other words, don't just say it like quietly, right? You should say it out loud a little bit, so at least your ears can hear what you're saying. At least that much. Okay, good. So we'll see the bit Yosef. What does he say here? Where is this in Tetvav Amud Bet? Amar Rav Yosef Machloket B'Kriyat Shema. Right? Where is this in Brachot? Right? It says over there that the Machlok is during Kriyat Shema, but B'Shar Mitzvot, when it comes to other mitzvot, Divrei Hakol Yatza, you did full obligation, even if you didn't hear it. Tanya Lo Yivarech Adam Birkat Hamazon B'Libo Ve'im Berach Yatza. So it says there in the Braita that a person shouldn't say Birkat Hamazon by heart, but if he did, he fulfills the obligation. Rashi explains, B'chol mitzvot, when it comes to all the mitzvot, B'chol brachot, all the blessings, B'libo shelo yishmiע le'oznav, right? So what does that mean by heart? It doesn't mean that he's not saying it at all. It's just that he can't hear it. He's saying it like whispering it very, very quietly. So you see from his words, he says that you actually have to pronounce the words, with your lips. That's what says Rabbeinu Yonah. Had aminan belibo lo b'machshava belvad kamar. That which we said, right? By heart, it doesn't mean that only by thinking, right? Like truly by heart. Bilvad kamar devadai machshavila devadai b'meirur lo yatsa. Because when it comes to that, right? If he just said it totally by heart, he didn't fulfill obligation. Because we hold, right, halachically, that thinking is not the same thing as saying it. But what he wants to say is that even though he didn't hear it, it wasn't. He was just like whispering it, very, 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 very silently. But since he pronounced it with his lips, he did fulfill his obligation b'diavad. So he says in this parak in Chaf Abud Bet, there's a Mishnah there, the Baal Keri, about Baal Keri, Belibo Amar Ravina. It says that you can think in your right by heart. Ravina says Zotomet Hirhur B'Kidibu. So you see from there he says Ravina that thinking is like spaying. But Rav Chazda Amar Hirhur Lav Kidibu Dame. But Rav Chazda says no, it's not like that. Katav Shem Rosh says the Rosh over there. Rabbeinu Chanelo Pasak Rav Chazda. The Rach Pask like Rav Chazda. Ve'en yotzei yedei chobat Kriyat Shema ad sheyotzi b'spatav. So therefore, right, he has to at least say it with his lips, pronounce it with his lips. Even though he doesn't have to actually hear it. The Pasak Rav Chazda, like Rav Chazda said, Gufei le'el beperk bet. In Perk Bet Tetvav Amud Bet Ad Kan Shalom. Aval Rambam Katav Perk Aleph. But what does the Rambam say? Ve'im lo ishmiע le'ozno yatsa ban she'otzi l'spatav ben she'verach v'libo. Rambam says even if he really said it by heart, like literally, he didn't pronounce it with his lips at all. וכן כתב גם כן סמ"ג. סמ"ג also says this. ומשמע בלשונם במחשבות הלב כמר. So from their language, right, it implies that we're talking about truly by heart. So this is a machloket, in the Rishonim, whether saying something by heart has any significance. So according to Rambam, it does. The truth is, Shulchan Aruch doesn't paskin that way. So that we paskin that saying something by heart doesn't really do anything. You actually have to pronounce it with your lips. Okay, good. So let's see Shulchan Aruch. Let's Shulchan Aruch like this. צריך שישמיע לאוזניו מה שמוציא משפתיו. He has to also hear, right, what he says with his lips. So lechatchila, you should hear it. It should be loud enough to hear it. ואם לא השמיע לאוזניו, but בדיעבד, right, if he didn't hear it, ובלבד שיוציא בשפתיו, as long as he said it with his lips, as we said, right, he does full his obligation. So יצא. Yeah, so in other words, we don't pass like the Rambam, that he says even by heart, you fulfilled your obligation. But if you whispered it and you couldn't hear it, b'diavad, you just fulfilled your obligation. Okay, so that's bet. Let's go to Gimel. We have time. Let's move on. So it says here, מי שאומר דבעל הבית עם בניו ואשתו. Yeah, I'm reading the Shulchan Aruch, but I should first do the tour in Bet Yosef. Let's go back there. Let's go back there. So it says here in Gimel, Bet Yosef, כתב הקובו, says the קובו, שעל הבית עם בניו, שבעל הבית עם בניו, ואשתו. So let's say you have like a family, right? Husband, wife, children. הבו כסופר, מברך ובור יצא, לפיכך צריך לברך בעל הבית בקול רם, כדי שישמעו בניו ואשתו ויצאו בברכתו. ומי שברך בלחש טועה, ואם יש שם אישה ובנים, if there is, okay, so I'll tell you what it says, right? It says a kobo like this. As we said, right, you have a family there, husband, wife, children. Now, he says it's like a sofer. So what does that mean? מברך ובור יצא, לפיכך צריך לברך בעל הבית בקול רם. So he's telling you like this, right, that the head of the household has to say in a loud voice, in order that the family should hear him, so they can all fulfill their obligation like that. And he says, whoever does it like silently is mistaken. Right? When your family is there, right? Why? Because they're not going to hear you. And they're not doing it themselves. They're relying on you, so it's not going to work out like that. As we said, nowadays everybody says it by himself, so we don't really do this anymore. But in those days, they didn't. Not everybody said it by himself. As I told you guys, that in those days, not everybody had a sidur, things like this. So it was done by heart, basically, So that's why the one who was saying it had to say it out loud so people could hear him and fulfill their obligation. Okay, that's Gimel. So let's see Shulchan Aruch, what it says here. יש מי שאומר, בעל הבית עם בניו ואשתו צריך לברך בקול רם כדי שיצאו בברכתם, right? As we said, that, when you're with your family, right, and they're depending on you, you better say it out loud because they need to hear you. Otherwise, it's not going to work, right? They're not going to fulfill their obligation like that. Okay, that was Shulchan Aruch. So we have more time. We'll go on. These are short, so we can do a few of them. No problem. So it says over here, now another question comes up, right, with Birkat Hamazon. Yerushalmi, right, Shikor Ma'u Shevarech. So it says in Yerushalmi, the question is like this. Somebody who's drunk, right, can you say Birkat Hamazon? So the truth is, the halacha is that a person who's like, drunk, he can say Birkat Hamazon. Unlike, Amidah, right, where we say there, you shouldn't do that. But when it comes to Birkat Hamazon, they allowed you to like bless when you're drunk. I'm not telling you it's like totally drunk, like you're totally sloshed, but I'm talking about like normal drunk. So we'll see, right, how that comes out in halacha. We'll see in the Beit Yosef here what it says here. Let's see the tour also. Let's check it out. Let's see the tour. So he says like this, right? Abba bar Abin Amar Chad Chasid Shal Eliyahu. So he says, right, that this rabbi says one Hasid, right, one pious person, he asked Eliyahu, right? Shikor Ma'u Sheibarech. He asked him, is a drunk person allowed to say Birkat Hamazon? Right. So you guys know who's Eliyahu, right? You know who I'm talking about.
Pinchas, no? Eliyahu.
Eliyahu Navi,
No.
right?
Isn't that the same as Pinchas?
Yeah,
So-
we do the prayer on the Siddur. Is it the same?
Yeah. So what's the story with how does this guy? How are they talking to this guy?
I just read along in Hebrew, but I don't understand.
No, what I was, yeah, right. But, you guys understand what this is? In other words, they're asking Eliyahu, what's halakha? So how do you find that? How do you find Eliyahu? How do you find him?
Through the heart? Is it?
Okay, so the answer is like this, right? That it's known, right, that to the big tzaddikim, Eliyahu comes to them. Because now Eliyahu was like a malach, he's an angel. So Eliyahu comes to the big tzaddikim, to learn with them Torah. Did he ever come to you guys? You guys have any?
One time, yes.
I wish.
Okay, so
But I'm not. I think it was a dream.
all right. Anyway, right. So that's how they were asking Eliyahu. Eliyahu comes to the big tzaddikim. You know why that is? Why does he come to them? What's the reason why? Well, they can't learn without him. What? There's no other rabbis to learn with.
I think it's pure of heart.
You know what it is? You know what it is? A person who he learned like a lot of Torah. He knows everything already. So the next step, is to learn with like angels. To get more information. So that's that's what if a person if he was zoche, that then he starts to learn with malachim. Like this. Eliyahu. So Eliyahu comes to him, and he answers their questions. He teaches them things. So that's what happens. To these big tzaddikim. They learn Torah from Eliyahu. So I just want to explain to you guys, so you understand what I'm talking about. Okay. So anyway, right? What happened over here is like this: that so he asked Eliyahu, right? So what's the rule, right? When it comes to a drunk person, is he allowed to say Birkat Hamazon? Amar ve'achalta ve'savarta ve'rachta b'chol hashon she'ata mevarech. So he answers him apparently yes, right? That's how it answers him. But tzarich sheishmiya lo ozno. Okay, that's something else. I'm sorry, because so I'm sorry, I didn't read it right. I'll read it one more time. So it tells him, right, so so he says from this pasuk we learn from this verse that even if he's like kind of like queasy, he can still say Birkat Hamazon, right? So drunk is like queasy, same thing. So that's how we know, right? That you're allowed to. So this comes in handy, when on Purim, because we get drunk on Purim. So then after we have the meal, we have to do Birkat Hamazon. So the question is, right? How do you do Birkat Hamazon when you're drunk? So the answer is you're allowed to, right? As according to what we said over here. So therefore, there's no problem, right? So when you finish your Purim meal, even though you're drunk, you can still say Birkat Hamazon. That's what we're saying. So that's the end of the tour. Okay, very nice. Let's go to Bet Yosef here. You guys know when since we're talking about Eliyahu, right? We have to learn the whole thing. When is Eliyahu supposed to come back to us?
Right before the Mashiach, no?
The day before.
The day before. Thank you, God.
Yeah. The day before
That's
Mashiach
how we
comes.
know the Mashiach.
I'm sorry? What was that
Yeah,
again?
day before. That's what we're
Day
gonna find
before, that's
out.
what it says, yeah. The day before. He's going to come the day before Mashiach. So
And not
if
on Shabbat.
Eliyahu came
Not on
today,
Shabbat.
Mashiach is coming tomorrow. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
And not on Shabbat. It will not
Oh,
be on
no
Shabbat.
Shabbat. Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I like that. Okay, that's good. So yeah, because they don't want to break Shabbat, you can't come and break Shabbat. It's no good. So okay, very good. So when else does Eliyahu come? You guys know? There's another time also that he comes. So the answer is when you do Brit Milah, he comes to the Brit Milah. Did you know that?
And doesn't he come in Pesach also when we're doing the Seder Kabotaka? No.
I don't know.
When you leave
That's just a wishful thinking. But to the Brit Milah, he
when
really
you
has
open
to
the
come.
door and ask them to come in.
But the Brit Milah, he really has to come. He has no choice. You know why that is?
No.
So there's a story like this, right? Brought down in the Book of Kings, Melachim, that one time, he got really angry at the Jewish people, Eliyahu. So he told Hashem, he said, they broke your covenant, right? He was angry at the Jews. They broke your covenant, he said. So Eliyahu, Hashem got mad at him, you're accusing my people, huh? Shame on you. So he told him, because I'm going to punish you. What's the punishment? Every time there's a Brit Milah, you have to show up. Why is that? Because then you're going to see, right, that my Jews keep the covenant. They don't break the covenant. Who told you they break the covenant? They keep it. So therefore, he has to come to every Brit Milah. And then he tells Hashem, yeah, the Jews are keeping the covenant. Oh, that's good. That's Eliyahu. There's a lot of nice stories about Eliyahu, but I'm not going to get to it now, right? We're not going to.
I do have a question. Does he come for a convert when he is getting the Brit Milah or no?
Oh, good question. Oh, wow, that's a good one. It's a good question. So, yeah, probably the answer is no, because you know why? Because when the convert does
because he's not a Jew yet.
yeah, exactly when he does Milah, he's still not Jewish. So maybe not,
Again.
Right.
Can they do it after
He's
so he
only
can
Jewish when he goes
witness
to the
the
mikveh.
miracle? Okay.
You understand? He's only Jewish when he goes to the mikveh.
Yes, yes.
So the Brit Milah is too early a little
And I'm
bit.
saying, can they do the Brit Milah after?
Oh, so there's a sequence, You're supposed to do the Brit Milah
Yeah.
first, and then the mikveh.
Yes, I know. But
Yeah. Ask my converts; they'll
yeah.
tell you. They'll tell you how I did it. They'll tell you everything. Okay, so anyway, so that's a
But
story.
we
That's
don't get to we don't get.
yeah. Okay,
I'm sorry. We don't get to see.
yeah. Well,
Like,
you don't do conference calls with them? No. Okay.
no.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, that's the way it goes, right? Yeah. So Eliyahu has to come. He's a busy guy. He's traveling all over the world. Sometimes he's in Argentina, sometimes Mexico, right? Sometimes he's in Moscow. He's always somewhere else, Eliyahu. Okay, that's the way it works. Okay, very good. So anyway, right? So they asked Eliyahu, right? That's how he answered them. That yes, you're allowed to say it when you're drunk. So let's see the Shulchan Aruch, right, and see what he says about that. By the way, the question is, why did they ask you to ask Eliyahu, right? Why couldn't they just look in the halacha, whatever? It's a good question, right?
It is.
So
Yes.
what the answer is that they ask Eliyahu questions where they don't have like a tradition about it, so he answers them. You know what I mean? They don't have a clear tradition, so he answers them. These kinds of questions. Okay, so anyway, right? Let's see the Shulchan Aruch here. So says Shulchan Aruch like this: "Afilu nishtaker kol kach ad she'eino rawi chol ledaberoi, yachol levarech b'kat hamazon." Look what he says, right? Even if he got so drunk, right, that he can't even speak properly. It's like, oh, talking like that, right? Still, he can do Birkat Hamazon, even if he's that drunk. So, that's good. As I said, right, this halacha is good for Purim. We need this. Okay. Okay, very good. So, maybe we can do one more. Let's see. Let's see if we can do one more. This is also an important one. It's important for mothers, who have little children. You'll see why now. So it says over here, "Im berach ve'ayta tzot kenegdo, o shaya shikor nista, right? Nistapaku atosot be'arosh be'perek hadam." So question is like this, right? Let's say, right, he did Birkat Hamazon, and there was like excrement, by him. It smells bad. So the question is, did he fulfill his obligation like that or not? Or right, let's say he was drunk, right? So Tosfot had a doubt, Be'arosh, and Im Sarich Lachazor Barech, would they have to go back and bless again? Kemo she'enu omrim b'tfilah, like we say regarding tfilah, like prayers. Or nomar כיוון שברכת המזון מדומדם מלומר שתוי יכול לברך. Or maybe, right, maybe because you're allowed to stay Birkat Hamazon when you're drowsy. So this is also the same thing. כיוון ברכת המזון מדומדם לכתחילה מה שאין כן בתפילה, but not only that doesn't apply to תפילה, to prayers. אם כן, אם ברק נגד צואה או שהיה שיכור לא יחזור. So therefore says Tosfot that if he blessed right next to excrement or right he was drunk, he doesn't have to do it again, right? He fulfills obligation. כתוב רבנו ירוחם, כתוב עוד שם תוספות, and also these rabbis said מיהו משום מרגליים פשיטא דאין צריך לחזור וברך. But it says when it comes to urine, right, for still you don't have to go back and bless for urine if there was urine there. כתבתי בסימן עין וו, and it says we already wrote this in chapter 76. Okay, so we're done with the chapter. Very good, Baruch Hashem. We're done with the chapter, and we're almost done with the class. So, B'ezrat Hashem, it comes in good timing. So let's do Shulchan Aruch, and we'll see you tomorrow after that. So it says here, Ve'im berach hayta tzuat ber kenegdo, right? So if he blessed, right, Birkat Hamazon, and there was excrement there, right, next to him, or shaya shikor, let's say he was drunk, right? So here he says, right, he was like totally drunk, like even more than what we said before. So what does that mean? He was like lot, like totally knocked out, right? Out for the count, He was that drunk, So Nitzapku Tosfot Darosh, then Tosfot Darosh had a doubt, right, regarding this, whether he fulfills obligation. Im tzarich lechazor v'barech, mishum raglayim. There was a doubt. So when there's a doubt, right, we don't bless. But the truth is, that that's not so simple because, if it's from the Torah, Birkat Hamazon, then maybe we do have to bless. But it says when it comes to urine, for sure, we don't have to go back, right? So that's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. But in the Bet Yosef, I think we said we shouldn't bless. Let me just make sure I'm right here. Yeah, so it says there that we don't bless. Right, so the rule is we don't bless, when it comes to these things. Okay, so there you go, right? So I guess we're done with this. Okay, very good. So, yeah, I guess we're done. Okay, so just to recap, right? What did we just say? That, if it's urine, for sure, right, you fulfilled your obligation. But if it's excrement, there's a doubt, so we don't bless from doubt. That's what he's saying. Okay. So that's about it. Okay, very good. So thanks for coming tonight. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Laila Tov, Chazak Baruch. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Rabbi.
All the blessings.
Thank you so much.
God bless.